Okay, we are going on to another qualified speaker who is qualified both in District 100 and District 12, and follow that up with being the district governor of District 100. So he's a past district governor from District 100. And he is always interesting. I've heard him speak on numerous occasions besides becoming a qualified speaker. And so let me start with his introduction. Many people join Toastmasters and then after a few years drop out. Oh, that's terrible. That's heresy. Perhaps at that moment they wonder if they will ever use those skills outside of Toastmasters. Tonight's speaker will share a true story on why you should never quit practicing the art of public speaking. David Flores, past District 100 District Director, Toastmasters International, District 12, and District 100 qualified speaker, 39-year Toastmaster, title of his speech, Caught in a Pickle. Caught in a Pickle, David Flores, let's hear it for him.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I'm assuming everybody can hear me. I've had some issues with the internet here. The wind is blowing very hard, so it's kind of causing me to say it. I'm getting some fluctuations. But yes, for those of you maybe recently have noticed that there's a new game in town. It's called pickleball. It's kind of a mixture between tennis and ping pong. It's bigger than a ping pong table, but smaller than a tennis court. But it looks pretty much the same as both those sports. Well, I want to share with you a story about the original pickleball, the one that I played as a young kid growing up in our neighborhood. See, when we played pickleball, it was basically a simple game that we could play in our neighborhood because it didn't require but 3 people and a baseball. That's all you needed. And the object of the game was real simple. You had one person that was a base runner, and the other 2 people were the people who were going to try to tag you out. We needed bases, but the bases were simple. We usually got a cardboard box, cut up a square, place it down one end of the yard, somebody's house, and at the other end of the yard of someone's house, and those were our bases. And we could play this game forever. The object was simple. The runner had to get from one base to the other without being tagged. And each base that you went from to the opposite side, you gained a point. And this game will go on until you were eventually tagged out. So then you just switch players, and the other player would go in the middle, and the other 2 players would be on the other side, both ends. And we played this game for hours and hours and hours because it only required the 3 of us and a baseball. We could do it. So we did that probably every day, along with other games. We're pretty much what we call the sandlot games of the neighborhood, playing this game. And the only time we ever quit the game, usually, is because someone's father would come home from work and they say that we put a path in his yard and he'd kick us out. Or things got dark, he couldn't see anymore. Or either that or someone's mother yelled, it's time to come home for dinner. So we had to quit the game. But we played that game for years, and I remember often how much we did it. Unfortunately, when I was growing up, I never got the opportunity, along with my friends in my neighborhood, to play organized ball. We weren't in Little League, didn't have Pop Warner. Our parents just couldn't afford to pay for those kind of sports as an extracurricular for us growing up. So we just intended to play it among ourselves, our own games that we would play. And pickleball was one of our favorites because it was easy to do and only required 3 of us to be able to play. Well, then finally, when I made it into junior high school with my first opportunity to actually play an organized sport and play against people we didn't know, not among ourselves. So I remember that when we got into the 9th grade, we were in our district championship game. Our coach at the time was a fairly successful baseball player at Chapman College here in Orange County. He got drafted to the minor leagues, didn't quite make it, but in the meantime, he was smart enough to get a teacher's credentials, and he ended up being our coach our 9th grade year, junior high school. So let me tell you what happened. Having played among ourselves as kids, we never had any really idea how the game was played. We just kind of played wherever we wanted to. But with Coach Vanneman, he had all kinds of different plays that we would work on, different strategies we'd play in baseball, and all kinds of things that I was never familiar with. My other friends that have played ball that were in that school were in Little League. They knew what was going on. I didn't, along with a couple of my other friends that were in the same situation. So I had to pay really close attention to what was going on how these games were played and the different strategies involved in baseball. Sorry for the dogs. But what happened was what really tells me the story that I want to share with you. There was a play they call a squeeze play. And for those who are not familiar with baseball, I'll try to explain as best I can how that's played out. The squeeze play starts out with if you have a person on third base. What you want to try to do in the squeeze play is you're going to try to steal home, but the difference is that the batter who's at home has to get his bat and square it up and just let the ball hit the bat so that it bounces into the fair zone. But the thing is, you can't give the play away before you start. So what happens, you have to wait until the pitcher who's ready to pitch is committed to throw the ball home. So the way the story goes, I'm on third base. We're at the bottom of the ninth inning. I represent the winning run because we were tied at 1-1. For me to get home means the game is over and we've won the championship. I'm standing there. The coach puts on the sign. The squeeze play is on. Now, we've practiced this many times during the week and throughout the season. And the caveat in the whole play was that you could not give it away before the pitcher committed to throwing the ball home. And the batter could not square up until the pitcher had committed that. And one of the things the coach always emphasized is you gotta bunt the ball on the ground. The worst thing can happen if you were to pop the ball up, because then the runner will get caught. And all they had to do was catch the ball and throw it back to the third baseman. And it's just a force out where they don't even have to tag you. They just have to get the ball to the base before you get back. So the likelihood of making it back if the ball gets put up in the air are very slim. So we're ready to go. Play is on. I'm on third base and I'm sneaking off, taking a lead, trying to get away. And the whole time I'm watching that pitcher, eye contact with him, his every movement, making sure he's not going to try to pick me off. Because if he throws to third base and I'm not there, they can just tag me out and I'm out. And the play is dead. So I'm sitting there staring at the pitcher. And the pitcher, same way. He's got his mitt and his ball, and he's staring at me. Because he's thinking, if I get too far off that base, he's going to pick me off. So I'm carefully watching him, and he's watching me. We're in a staring contest, looking to see who's going to blink first. And sure enough, just as I see him move that foot and commit that he's going to throw the ball home, I take off. There I go. Running as fast as I can, just seeing how this plane is going to work. Remembering that just in practices, I'll see the ball as it comes to the bat, and the bat will bounce off, the ball will bounce off the bat, and I'll go sliding into home. Safe. We win the game. And it's working the way it is. I'm coming as fast as I can, running as fast as I can. And all of a sudden, no, he didn't pop the ball up in the air. He missed the ball entirely. Well, I didn't remember practicing that part of the game where we do if the ball gets missed. So all of a sudden, all I see is the catcher with the ball in his hand and his glove, getting ready to tag me out. So I immediately slam on the brakes. I dig my cleats into the dirt, come into a complete stop as fast as I can, and try to get back towards third. Now I'm in a pickle. I'm between third base and home plate, and they're going to try to tag me out. It's a bit of a cat and mouse game. I got cats on both sides of me, and I'm the mouse in the middle. And there I go, back and forth, back and forth. Seemed like an eternity. And the only thing in my mind that I remember vividly at that time was when Mark missed that ball, was my coach yelling out an expletive that I won't repeat here. The other coach on their team just going, yeah, we've got this. So back and forth I go, thinking, I got to get out of this. This is going to be terrible. If we don't score, we go into extra innings, and who knows what the outcome might be. Or we could have ended the game if we had pulled that play off, but it didn't work as planned. Finally, thinking of all the years I played that silly game of Pickle, never in my mind ever imagining it would ever come to something that would be important. But now I found myself in a position where it really meant something. And this was an important thing to happen. I look back at all those hours, hundreds upon hundreds of hours playing that game back and forth among ourselves. And here I was in the same situation where it really meant something. As we went back and forth, I finally thought, what I used to do when we played the game is I would fake like I'm going to run back to one base, stop, and then immediately go back towards as I saw the ball being thrown. So in my mind, I decided that's what I'm going to do. So as the person at home plate started running at me with the ball in their hand, I said, okay, I'm turning. I'm going to run like I'm going back to third base as hard as I can, and then wait to see the signal where the other player on the other side who's going to receive the ball to try to tag me out puts his hand up. And that was my clue. I stopped like fast as I could. I could see the other player waiting for the ball to be thrown back to him. And just as he was reaching up, I was diving down. Boom. Scored. Game over. We won the championship. I've never been more thankful for all the times I spent playing that silly game where it finally actually paid off on something big. So you ask yourself, why is that anyway in relationship to what we do in Toastmasters? Well, as I mentioned before, we've seen people join the organization and eventually leave for whatever reasons. But oftentimes I think it's because they don't see a return on their investment, the time they just spent working on that, developing those speaking skills. They've gotten confident. They feel comfortable with what they're doing. They know they've gotten better, but they just don't see themselves actually putting it into action for any real reason. But you have to think about this. Every professional player continues to practice on a day-to-day basis, whether you're in sports, in music, acting, anything that you do professionally. You've always wanted to professionally practice on a regular basis to keep that skill at its highest potential all the time. Because you never know. I'd like you to say something. Do you want to be the person who gave up too soon and realize that what you don't use, you lose? You can get rusty and not be able to perform at your highest level, at peak performance. That's not the situation you want to be in. That's why I've always said, this skill, this art, public speaking and communication, is something that you have to practice on a regular basis and never quit. Because when the day comes that you're put on the spot and it's your turn to perform, you'll either be ready or you'll be rusty. And being rusty may not get the results you want. So that's why, after 39 years, I've never left the organization and never plan to, because I want to be ready. If I ever got myself caught in a pickle again, it may not be a baseball game. It could be entirely something different. And that's the thing we have to remember, that I want everybody to remember. Never stop practicing the skill. One day it may pay off, but if anything else, you're a better person for keeping that skill at its highest level. Mr. Toastmaster.